Hello, I am Akash Agarwal. I am a third year undergraduate in Production and Industrial Engineering at IIT-Roorkee. I am an active member of the Debating Society and the Society of Business. My experience as the Deputy Contingent Leader of Inter-IT Culturals 8.0 gives me practical experience in stakeholder management as well as organizing large-scale events. I am someone whose interest lies at the intersection of business management and technology. I'm very fascinated by the huge advances in the fields of AI and blockchain and how they interact with business at critical functions like intellectual property rights, etc. And with that said, let's delve into the topic of today's video. Today, I will be discussing the growing role of technology in IPR, that is intellectual property rights. So first of all, let's understand what are IPR. So intellectual property rights are legal protections that are given to a creator, an inventor, for the creation of their minds. Basically, in simple language, these are protections that give exclusive rights of an invention, of a creation of a person to that person. Now, let's come to why these are important. Why intellectual property rights are important is because they give the exclusive right to the owner. Secondly, they incentivize R&D by giving companies, by giving businesses an opportunity to capitalize on the stuff that they create. Let's take an example to understand this. For example, let's take McDonald's. If McDonald's logo is something that anyone can use, that can dilute the brand, that can introduce extra competition where the company does not receive franchisee fees, and the new unrelated franchisees that may pop up can dilute brand. How? By giving inferior quality goods. Similarly, let's take an example of a pharma giant. They invest billions of dollars. Their scientists invest hundreds of hours of their hard work and create, let's say, a vaccine. But if the formula of that vaccine cannot be patented or cannot be protected, it can be used by a competitor to manufacture the goods at a very cheap rate. What that does is that reduces the incentives for R&D by the company. Now you might think that okay, even if there are no protections, the company can protect, can keep it a secret and still produce and gain benefits. Now that is also still a problem. Why? Because if the formula is patented, the company can give it to other manufacturers as well, take royalties, and hence critical medicines can be mass produced. For example, this is something that we saw in case of coronavirus, or let's say there is another pandemic. Now if there are no patents, if there are no IPR, the companies do not have any incentives to actually mass produce those medicines. Look at Now let's look at the example at how technology impacts and is growingly changing the landscape of IPR. So with technology, we are constantly moving from physical world to digital world. What happens there is that a lot of the IPR being created right now in the world is in digital format. What that does is two things. First of all, in this way, the stealing of IPR rights, the infringement on IPR rights is made easier as the malicious actors, they don't need to access the formulas, the research physically, but can use things like hacks or illegal entry, etc. But uh, at the same time, technological advances make it more efficient to digitally track enforcement as well as to improve the creation of IPR itself. Let's take an example of a very basic technology. For example, QR codes. Now, QR code is something that is very basic and we use every day in our life. Just by putting a QR code on a product, a customer a regulator or an inspector can easily verify if the product is being created by the original patent holder or the original IPR holder or not. This kind of very basic but very revolutionary digital tracking is something that is interestingly changing the landscape of IPR. Let's look at the second front, that is enforcement. AI systems have the power to navigate through millions and millions of records of data in record time, which is something that is not possible for any body of human beings. What that does is that it gives the power to the regulators and the people applying for patent to check if their ideas are new, if it is something that is truly novel. Novelty is one of the three main pillars of most IPR rights, like patents. The other being non-obviousness and utility. AI also has the power to generate new use cases of the technologies being created through IPR, hence improving their business potential. Now let's look at some of these technologies. The first one is artificial intelligence. As we all know, AI has captured the entire tech landscape in the last 2-3 years. It also has a very huge impact on the IPR process. Uh, Now, what do I think? Where can AI be beneficial for IPR? It can happen on two fronts. The first one is on the creation front. On the creation front, AI has tremendous computation power. You can run millions of iterations in a single day using LLMs. At the same time, technologies like generative AI, they can create new IPR from the scratch. For example, they can create novels, they can create interesting stories, they can create movies, etc., etc. All these things, it explodes the avenue for the creation of new intellectual property rights. Now let's look at how AI can help developing countries like India. Most developing countries, including India, have not traditionally invested very much on intellectual property rights and its enforcement. What that leaves is that the system is not prepared for intellectual property rights, its enforcement, as well as the new age impacts of technology. How AI can help Indian regulators as well as innovators is that it can firstly help them bridge the gap in terms of R&D as compared to their Western peers. Secondly, it can help Indian regulators who do not have sufficient funding for such a large country to check for in terms of the application of IPR as well as in terms of enforcement of laws. In countries like India, where a lot of intellectual property is created in forms of novels, movie, etc., etc., these things can help both the regulators as well as the innovators who are trying to build. What that does is that once the process is streamlined and enforcement is increased, more and more creators have the incentive to create more IPR and hence both profit from it personally as well as for the nation. However, not everything is good. Not everything is as simple and holy as for the impact of AI on IPR. The rise of AI also brings out some important questions. For example, if AI creates some code or some movie or some novel, etc., who gets the IPR for this? The person who writes the code, the organization that owns the system, or someone else? As well as at the same time, AI also amplifies the risk of infringement of IPR, which is something that governments all around the world are grappling with. The need of the hour is that countries, especially aspirational countries like India, need to update their laws, need to have serious conversations about the impact of AI and other technologies, and improve their laws before it's too late. Now let's look at another important technology, blockchain. Blockchain is an immutable, decentralized ledger where you can securely and permanently record transactions. What blockchain brings to the table is the permanent immutable records. How that can help in two ways. The first one is proof of creation. Since the records in a blockchain are decentralized and immutable, it can properly help industries where competition is stiff to determine who created the patent first, who created the invention first, and help both regulators as well as innovators to better prepare themselves and to better implement the laws. The second important aspect of using blockchain in IPR is smart licensing. Through blockchain, we can create smart contracts which can directly pay creators every time their innovation is used without the need of complex paperwork. Hence, blockchain simplifies the process very much. To conclude the whole process, to conclude the impact of blockchain, the main impact of blockchain is that it streamlines the process and brings transparency to the entire IPR creation as well as enforcement process. To conclude this video, I would like to say that emerging technologies like AI and blockchain have both positive and negative impacts on the whole IPR ecosystem. They can accelerate creation, they can improve enforcement. At the same time, they pose new challenges and questions which need to be addressed. The need of the hour is that countries, especially like India, have to update their laws in order to catch up to these advances, and at the same time increase awareness among its business as well as innovator community to actually utilize the benefits of these advances.